Logic, School of Management. It is Symbol Logic.
Welcome to another episode of Logic School of Management presents Business Sense, an entrepreneurial conversation in COVID times. My guest today is Mr. John Chaco Naroth. Is a director, managing director of NC John and Sons Private Limited, which is fundamentally LLP based but having operations now across South India. Mr. John is an MBA from Bridgeport University in Connecticut. He has been in business for more than about 30 years. Predominantly, he looks after the international export and international business operations. Okay. Having been there for so long a period, now he is also preparing his next in line. That is, the next gen in getting into the business and preparing them to take over at the right time. Mr. John Chaco Naroth, also is both a spokesperson and the chair of many of the industry bodies, and he's a charter member of TiE Kerala. Okay, welcome, sir. Welcome to this conversation, Business Sense. I am S.R. Nair. I am an entrepreneur, a adjunct professor, author, and a mentor. Okay, so now this is something, COVID times is something that we never anticipated. We never thought that this could happen, but having happened. What's your thoughts about this? What are your thoughts about COVID times that you're currently undergoing, sir?
Basically, times are extremely tough. We have lost about 5 weeks of production and shipment.
Yes.
Sort of forced to pay all sorts of fixed costs like salaries, wages, power, utilities, all that, with zero revenue.
Yes.
And no real end in sight in terms of when we will be back to normal and when the market will be back to normal. We're sort of taking it by day.
Such an uncertain time. For a person who has been traveling a lot across the nations, now you're grounded, sort of grounded. And looking at the travel industry and the travel and the restrictions that is attached with that, and also the social distancing that one has to personally keep. What do you think that you'll be able to now travel freely? When will that be?
I don't see any trips at least for 6 months.
6 months. Okay. Now, your clients are located all over the world. Okay, including the richest of nations like Europe, as well as United States and other places. What do you think the global industry has been affected? I mean, how does the global industry globally look at this? Globally, if we have a view of the state, we have a view of the country, and looking at it from a global perspective. So, what is your reaction to the whole thing that has happened, sir?
I think it's going to be very mixed, and it all depends on how fast many of these economies come back to normal. The products that we make are not really on top of the priority list of anyone, but at the same time, some are low ticket items.
Yeah.
For example, some of the major retailers who are open during these times because they sell food and they also sell, wide range of products. I'm talking about the typical hypermarket kind of customer. In some of those stores, we are quite surprised to receive our weekly sales data, and we see that the sales are in line with what their projections are. These companies work with a lot of mathematical models, and they predict 1.5 door mats per store per week, per all that stuff. We get a weekly report, and some of them are very encouraging because it shows that though people are going there to buy food, they also buy other products, and one of our products along with that. So, but again, in some other markets, some other emerging markets, there have been other issues that their currencies are weakened, so the product will be more expensive,
Yes.
in the coming months. So
Yes.
everything depends on how fast the normalcy returns to many of these markets.
But one thing that you said, that's a very interesting thing. They're saying that in spite of the COVID times and in spite of the fact that people only will look at those food items and things like that, but they have been encouraging signs of, your products of your range also is being bought. That's a very encouraging input. Now, do you think there's a buyer behavior behind that, or just like that it happened?
I think it's normal. Besides these kind of stores which are open, we have customers who are selling predominantly through the internet.
Yes.
And in countries where the Amazon and the couriers and all are operating,
Yeah.
some of them are having pretty decent business, which means people are sitting at home doing nothing but they're shopping.
The shopping. That's right. Okay. So that internet sales do happen.
Yes, yes.
But I also see that larger companies like Amazon and Flipkart, etc., their sales must have come down drastically other than certain range of products that they sell online,
But I think that in America, it shows that the Amazon sales have gone up by 30% during this time.
Oh, that's great. So that's also, that is a corollary to the fact that things are going online, isn't it? From the brick and mortar thing, things are going online. Don't you think so?
Yeah, but because also that I think many of these like shopping malls and all are closed. So
yes.
If somebody needs to buy it, if it's not buyable in a store, they're going online and buying it. So they are definitely they're gaining over the retailers in these times.
But don't you think it is actually a new normal, which nobody would have thought about it earlier? Now they're actually looking in terms of using the online means to buy those things which otherwise they wouldn't have bought.
It was probably happening already, and this is probably making it, once you find the convenience of buying it online, you probably don't then go to a store. Just I think the percentage of the population by age which shops on the internet is higher among the younger age groups.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, sure. It's a shift that is happening.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So now we have been, in fact, in our Thai group also, we have lots of conversation going back and forth, etc. And we also discuss about the new normals. Okay. Now this online, whether it is a meet, see, look at it. If otherwise, if I have to come to your place to shoot you and the whole process, you're sitting at your convenience at your place. I'm sitting at my convenience at my place. But actually, the discussion is happening. I'm very soon next week. I'm actually going to attend a board meeting of the listed company Manapuram's wholly owned subsidiary. The board meeting is going to happen online. The announcement already had come into. So many things are happening online, whether it is learning, whether it is meeting, whether it is conferences, and series of webinars that's happening across the country and the world, isn't it? So I think there is a complete sort of shift over to the online media that's happening. So is there any business models that comes to your mind, whether you can use these opportunities in coming times? Are you thinking in terms of that, sir?
I think that, maybe you can have, more frequent interactions with, buyers and product development teams and all that, now that these kind of platforms are available. Because, something like video conferencing, yes, but we need the equipment.
Yes.
But, something like Zoom, which I had never used before, and it's become so easy that, as a person who's traveled around, I'm sure I'm going to miss traveling if this is the way it's going to be forever.
that is right. Okay. But I'm sure, if you're going to be continuing to do like this for maybe another 6 months and 1 year like that, there'll be another inertia effect coming in. Whether you want to travel, you also feel, do I need to go because I can comfortably do it with the help of the Zooms and the WebEx and Microsoft Teams solutions that is happening, isn't it?
And also, I think that, people also have to get used to these things. Like, I'm not yet savvy with flipping from this camera to putting up a spreadsheet or putting up a chart on the screen, discussing that, going back to that. So I think it's a matter of time, but it sure will change the way people work.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I'll tell you the same thing. When I first did my webinar, that was for Indian Society for Training and Development, I told them, look, I will only speak. Rest of it is yours. But that boy said, sir, it is nothing. I will just put it on the screen and then you keep doing it. And then, the second onwards, John, I had been doing all the things myself, putting the screen and moving the screen and telling the thing. It isn't that difficult, but only the question of the first time doing. And because we never needed to do it in the past, isn't it?
Right.
Okay. Now, see, exports is an arena. I mean, particularly you're into fiber exports. Your organization is a decade-long organization, having established the name in the market for long, including Indian and global market. Now, as time moved by from the coir fiber, you also have gone into other fibers. So, what was it necessitated, or was it something that you saw in the future and incorporated as part of your product range? How was it? What was the thought at that time?
Well, partly because many of our customers are working with different types of products, different types of flooring, different natural fibers, different synthetic fibers. So there's always an opportunity to sell a different range of products to the same customer, and also the opportunity to weave with multiple fibers and yarns on the equipment that you have. That has helped us to widen the product range. In fact, we recently started making some flooring with recycled PET.
Excellent. I had seen that actually. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
I think you need to speak about that, because it's a very good innovation. I was going to ask you separately, since you said about that. Please spend some time on explaining that. It's a lovely one actually.
Yeah. Recycled PET basically from our water bottle.
Yeah.
So we came across somebody who was we also make some products with wool mixed with other natural fibers. And one of these wool spinners who was actually had spun some of this fiber for some other person came up to us and showed us some yarn and said that, this is recycled PET, which almost feels like wool. So, we said, let's do some sampling. We made some samples, showed it to some of our customers, and they were interested. And so we added that to our range. It's not easy when you do that, because you have a lot of logistic issues, because this product has to come to us from all the way from Rajasthan, because there are no local spinners of this, around us.
Okay.
So,
right.
From the fiber to yarn, and then. So these are things which help you to add to your product range.
Yes.
It may not become that may not become a huge part of your portfolio, but it helps that when you're at a trade show and wherever you go, any part of the world, whether you're participating in a trade fair or at a business meeting, everybody wants to see something new.
Absolutely.
You've been selling the same coir mat or a jute rug for 75 years. So, what is new? So that question, and we are able to use this blending with other fibers to widen a range of.
Okay. See, I think in Australian Open tennis, some of those uniforms used to buy the ball boys and the people, which was manufactured by you. So will you tell us something more about it? I mean, very interesting one.
Yeah, so we have a garment knitwear division, which is in Tirupur in Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
So, we have been working on recycled fiber-based textile for a couple of years.
Okay.
And I think it was in one of the presentations that my nephew, who looks after that, when he was showing it to these customers, and they said that, he said that this is recycled. So, I mean, basically, if you feel this garment is just like 100% polyester, basically.
Yeah.
But I think the recycle tag helped us to grab the attention of the importer who actually showed it to the Australian. They said, that would be a good USP for a product like that. So we are hoping that it attracts, gives us more mileage, and it attracts more people, because that got a tremendous amount of publicity.
Absolutely.
That a lot of people did not understand. And actually, on every garment, depending on the size, there is a stamp on it which says, so many bottles have gone into making this t-shirt.
Okay. So it really fitted that reduce, recycle, and reuse sort of the paradigm, right?
Yeah.
So that, you see, more than the corporate social responsibility, an organization which does an innovation, and that too sort of the recycling that you do, and on those material which you find it to be extremely difficult to destroy and get it mended with the mother earth and things like that. When you go into these sort of innovation, people really stand up and take notice. So I'm sure maybe, of course, because of COVID times, Wimbledon had been cancelled, and one doesn't know about French Open and US Open, etc., and the World Cup that is going to come, and we have Olympics, which is now going to be seemingly postponed. I don't know whether we will be able to hold it. But I think these are going to be a positive display places as well as user places for your this particular material, is it not?
Yeah, sure.
Are you in conversation?
Even in the flooring, when it is sold as something which is made from 100% recycled material, it has a appeal to some people.
That's right. So now these innovation, now you have operations now going on in many parts. Originally you were Alleppey based, and now South India and many other parts, and you have been able to bring in products and solutions. Say, for instance, jute, which originally belonged to the Sundarbans and the Calcutta and the West Bengal area. Now we have many places here. We are part of the manufacturing of that, the rugs and things like that. Now, what are the other thoughts that you have when it comes to products of this nature for the future? What will be the future ability of these products? Will it continue like what it is, or would you think that mixing and matching or new materials like what you call about PET, etc., being incorporated? Any such cases which you can think of, or are you planning, or are you research and developing certain things like this?
The natural fibers is a very small percentage of the total floor covering industry.
Okay.
And it is not something that can become anywhere close to what the synthetic range can do in terms of volume. Because a lot of constraints on the use of these things. Like, if you have a synthetic carpet or a wool carpet, something spills on it, it stains. Yes. You can shampoo it, clean it. These things you cannot.
I understand.
So only certain people who appreciate these fibers buy it.
Yeah.
It is also, in most cases, more expensive than synthetics.
Indeed. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, except maybe some high quality wool or something like that. So if you're comparing it with man-made fibers, it's always more expensive.
Yeah.
So the market is limited.
Yes.
You can only innovate with design.
Okay.
Then blends are like, we mix wool and jute, wool and sisal, jute and sisal, things like that, which are basically just adapting from one fiber to another. So it's more around, and there are also constraints about how fine you can spin these fibers because of the natural inherent characters. You can't spin a sisal fiber like you can spin a wool fiber. So the thickness of the product you can make, which is related to the weight, all that use can be only indoors. So a lot of constraints in the material that you are using, and access to the market, which segment of the market you can go to. Like, if you have pets and you have kids at home, it's not easy to maintain a natural fiber rug. So somebody will buy a synthetic rug which can be disposed. So
yes. I understand. Yeah, these are the constraints. Now, but at the same time, for more than about the 7 decades, you have been growing this business and you have been putting these innovations, etc. But you continue to place your headquarters at the town of Alleppey, and then base your operations out of there. So I have this question for an organization which has been there for more than about 7 decades and into the business and touching the global business arenas that you do. What is your take on the business atmosphere of Kerala?
Our industry has been the breeding ground for a lot of trade union activity for decades.
Indeed. This is where it began, actually.
Correct. So, the whole area, the industry has a notorious reputation when it comes to strikes and labor problems and all that.
Yes.
So what it has done is that it has really stunted the growth of the industry,
Okay.
and it's moving out. We have ourselves. We have moved maybe 75% of our operations out of Kerala.
Kerala. Sadly so. Yes. Understand.
Because
Yes.
it is still highly labor intensive, and the very fact that the weaving activity is actually, it's a craft. So once automation comes in, there's no reason for you to be here. Anybody can produce a rug on an automatic machine, which used to be done on a handloom. More and more automation is happening. There is very, very little handloom activity left.
Yeah.
And the handloom industry is almost completely finished.
Oh, I see.
And even the yarn in Koya used to be spun by hand,
Yes.
almost finished. Weaving, and the industry developed here because the looms were here.
I understand.
But once it is automated, there's no reason for the industry to be here anymore.
So, though it's not a very glorious picture, but so you're saying that you don't see much of future for this industry as far as the state of Kerala is concerned in the coming times.
Maybe, some companies are based here because we are all from here, and we may not, move lock, stock and barrel. Headquarters could be here, but all your activity could be elsewhere.
That's so very sad, and that is particularly, these are the industries even 70 or 7-8 decades back, where actually labor started, where people started making their livelihood out of these industries, if you recollect. And probably that is the reason by which it has had a lot of trade union issues also coming in. But the fact that you survived in spite of all this intense trade union as well as militant labor activities for about 7 years and still base your operation, though you have diversified and moved out, and still base your operation out of the state, that itself is a commendable level of an experience. So what do you think about that, being part of this and undergoing these difficult times, and particularly when you go outside and see the way things are opening up and the ease of doing business happening, etc., and still struggling to see when this state or when this ambience will improve? What is your thought about that, sir?
I don't think it's going to change. And if you see if you look at the workforce, I think I joined 30 years back, and those days it was very common that somebody who's working in the factory would come to you for a job for his son. No more.
No more.
No more. I mean, they all have 1 or 2 children. They're all educated. Nobody wants to come into these kind of industries.
Yeah.
So the workforce is just like slowly dying. I mean, we have not hired anybody for maybe 15 years. You just bring the workforce down slowly, and activities are moving out. Look at the cashew industry, which was based in Kuala. It's completely gone.
Absolutely.
And all the handloom industry in Kannur and all those industries, all the handicraft. In Kerala, the cost of labor is very high, and the Malayali in Kerala, productivity is very low.
Very low, very low. But the fact is now, see, you have ran this business for so long, and okay, within the limitations you have survived and progressed. Now, as a group, as a business group, NC John & Sons, your cousins and your next generation, all of you put together. If you look at it, are you looking at any other businesses of the future, or will you want to continue in this line of business, sir?
These kind of businesses have limited growth potential.
Yeah.
But if you do it right, there is still, decent size for the business. You can, depending on how you do it, who you work with, you can still make money. But there is limited growth. So some of the other areas that we are in, like, we are in plantations, but that's even equally bad in terms of the potential in a state like Kerala.
That is right,
we have some warehousing, those kind of areas. Probably there is potential for growth, and then maybe when the next generation comes, their ideas would be totally different on basically using the capital, but something totally different. So
I understand.
For us, at my age, maybe my thoughts about new ventures are limited. Besides just innovating on what you're doing and make the business grow that way.
But I also see, because you're part of TIE, and TIE has its organization, the Kerala Angel Network, and you have shown you are one person who has shown a very good interest in being part of it, to the extent of saying that if there are some good projects that the startups are coming in, you wouldn't mind funding it, So what is your thought on those startups that is going to come in time, predominantly technology centric, but they're going to come and you want to be part of those industries. What is your thoughts on that?
I think that it was interesting when we had the last meeting. I don't remember who it was who presented. It was written in a book. I have a book here. So he was saying that one of the reasons why you should be an angel investor is the fact that you are meeting and talking with people who are totally different in the way they think.
Okay.
They have ideas,
yes,
which you don't have.
Yes.
You might have the capital, so
yeah.
Associate with them, and
Okay.
all sorts of ideas that people come up with, which you don't. Your son might think that way, but you personally don't. So anybody who has an idea which can be scaled up and can do well, why not? Can be across a broad spectrum. I don't think there is many who are coming up with local manufacturing, but it's just I think it's IT based or whatever.
Technology based, actually.
Yeah, sure.
Have you already decided to fund some, or it is still in the making? I mean, you're still seeing which are.
No, we got attracted with that Bunbury, which I think
okay.
Is it's manufacturing, but I think it has got some and the fact that they have some numbers to show that they are in business, and it's something that can be scaled, not huge, but I think that it's a good idea. So I think collectively we put some money into it. Let's hope it does well.
We also hope it does well, because it has to do well for two reasons. One is that they have to really repose our faith that we have put into that. Secondly, these are all experimentations that has to succeed. If these experimentations does not succeed, again it is a doom factor, because there isn't anything that we can call other than call as our competency, except for the fact that we can export all this manpower all over the world. I think with this COVID time, look at it, lakhs of people in the Middle East wanting to come back, and they can't do that, and they're worried. So I think these sort of situations, if it is going to come up again, unless people come back to their home and start getting into businesses and entrepreneurship of this nature, I think we may lose our culture. Okay. We are in the very last stages of our conversation. It was so freewheeling, and you have been just going on like that. I didn't even know that we have crossed about 30 minutes of conversing each other.
Already.
So yeah, it is indeed, actually. Tell me, so if there is an advice that you would like to give it to a young, fresh entrepreneur, or a startup entrepreneur, or an early entrepreneur, what could that be, sir?
You mean in specific to these times, or?
No, it could be specific to these times or specific to competencies, like maybe funding, maybe technology, maybe areas to look up and things like that. Anything. It could be anything. What is an advice that you can give it to a young entrepreneur or a startup entrepreneur?
No, I think, what I had thought of was in specific to these times. I think it's very important to be very conservative with cash, because you don't know how long you have to survive in some cases without revenue.
Yes.
You have to be careful if you are in business already, be very careful in who you pick as a customer. Yes. Because it's times like this when they do not get product from somebody that they come switching to somebody else.
Yes.
You'll be very careful, because he might have defaulted his payments to somebody and he can't get any fresh food. So he's willing to switch, and sometimes you're willing to grab it because an opportunity comes, but you have to be very careful. So do proper credit checks and things like that. I would say do not invest into anything that is not going to give you returns in the very near future, whether it's going to be starting from inventory to plant and machinery to people.
Yes.
These are times to be very lean. Things which relook at, do you need these people? Do you need all the space? You need the infrastructure, all those things. So I think basically, tighten your belt however much you can to survive. And, things will certainly turn around. but it's the only the fittest will survive, because there will be for sure there will be a lot of companies going out of business
Yes.
here and overseas. All types of importers, retailers, all those are possibilities, because business is certainly going to shrink. You know,
Yes.
every,
Yes.
you look at a business like travel and tourism, there are so many industries and sectors that are associated with that one thing, like from taxis, automobiles, fuel, every it's
Yeah.
unending.
We call them force multipliers actually. Yeah. Force
Right.
multipliers.
So it's the key is to be conservative in these times, and ride it out. It's tough
Yes.
time, for sure a few months, and survival is key.
I understand. So thank you very much. That has been a very, very, what do you call, very sane advice that you have given, because sometimes you can really motivate people as well. But these are not the time. You have to really understand the realities and live within your means and your needs. I'm sure this too will pass. I hope this difficulty also will pass, and NC John and Sons under your stewardship and with all the people around, you'll be able to go from strength to strength. And I thank you for your time. And as we do in COVID times, namaste.
Stay
Thank you.
safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Bye. Bye.